Hi everyone, I am Steph from Bracken and Birch. Today I'm going to show you how to make a really simple autumnal wreath at home. It's a really good family friendly activity to get everybody involved with. You know, I am not a professional florist. I have to start by telling you that. But I am someone who during lockdown and over just the last kind of couple of months, I have found such solace in getting out into nature. And I'm surrounding myself by just beautiful landscapes, the forest, the parklands, and picking things for myself to bring home and place in my house. And so I've been putting together little floral displays, making wreaths to hang myself. And really that's where Bracken and Birch came from. I wanted to create a space that I could share these things with everyone else. So yeah, I'm going to bring you along for the journey. Today I'm going to show you how to make a really simple wreath with things that you'll have at home for sure. And really it's an exercise in getting out and about and enjoying the beautiful scenes that we have around us in a really safe manner. And yeah, here's me and my little boy at the forest. Yesterday we had so much fun in the forest. We always have so much fun in the forest. But I have to tell you that my 2-year-old is probably better at collecting the stuff and foraging for the stuff than he is at actually putting it together. But if you have a child from nursery age up, there's no reason why they wouldn't enjoy being a part of the process. So yeah, get them involved. I'm going to show you what I got out of the forest yesterday, but I'm also just going to start off by showing you some of the stuff that you can use to actually make and form your wreath. I'm going to be using this lovely florist hook today. If you want to pick one of these up, you can really inexpensively at the likes of the Range, somewhere like that. Yeah, I think this cost me £2, so it's not very expensive. However, you can do it for even cheaper than that. You can probably do it for free by using one of these. I've made so many wreaths with coat hangers. This wreath here, it's quite boho and not to everybody's taste, but I love it. And I've just used it by quickly shaping out a coat hanger and then putting twigs around the edge. It's not perfectly circular, and that's okay because we're going to cover it up with branches and some vines and some filler, and by the end of it, as long as you have a basic shape to use as your sort of mould, you're good to go. So that's free, just lying in a wardrobe, I imagine, in your house, and really easy to do. I am today going to use this, but you know, there's no need to not use this. One's not better than the other. And this actually has a really handy little hanger on it, so maybe this is better to use, but I'm going to use this today. I'm going to quickly show you then what we got in the forest yesterday. It's really not too much to ask for me and my family to go to the forest because we love spending the day in nature, and if I say it once during this, I'll say it 15 times. Get out into nature and enjoy what we have on hand, especially here in this country and in this gorgeous time of the year. So, what did we pick to help make our wreaths? Well, the first thing that we had to think about was our base, what we're going to actually form the wreath base out of. So I came upon these yesterday in the forest. I've never used them before, but they seem pretty good. These are vines from a holly tree. Now they seem pretty pliable, which is ideal for what we're going to do. And I like the fact that they were green. I always use just normal branches. This one here has been shaped using just twigs, and I've just woven them in and out and secured them in places with twine. But this, I don't know, it seems like a bit more interesting, like it might add a bit more depth, and if it shows through a bit of an interesting pop of colour. So we'll see how we do with these. But you can just use branches and twigs that you find in the forest. Now I really like a wreath that isn't just perfectly circular and boring in my mind. I like a little bit of texture. I know it's not for everyone. Some people will like a perfectly uniform wreath, and it's totally achievable with this stuff. But I like the spindly bits on the end of this. I kind of like to make something a bit more boho-y, a bit more freestyle looking. What I would say to you is try and get branches that are still attached to the tree and cut them. You can just take along a pair of like secateurs like this. They'll chop them off for you, no problem. But the reason being that if you find one that's on the forest floor, chances are it's been off of the tree for a while and it's had time to dry out, and it just won't be very easily manipulated. You can see from this one it's pretty dry, so if I try and manipulate it at all, it just cracks and breaks off, which isn't ideal for whenever we're wanting to shape them around our hoop and make something with them, and kind of they need to be a little bit more pliable. So try and cut them directly off the tree. That way your branch should be a little bit more just give in it, and you'll be able to manipulate it to the shape that you want. Well, the next thing that we need to think about then is our filler. So what do I mean by filler? Well, I mean really anything that's just green, bulky, leafy. It's what's going to give the main bulk to our wreath. I really love to use fern. They're just really easy picked. They're really available. I also think they're just really pretty. So yeah, I've got lots of green fern, but I also came upon this dried out fern that it was on the edge of the forest sitting towards the kind of roadside, and had been exposed to the sun, I suppose, much more than the stuff that was in the growth of the forest. I just like the colour of it. I think it's really pretty, and I think it's nice to be able to use different colours and textures and put them together. I think it just makes for a richer looking wreath. I've picked up some extra bits and pieces too. I've picked up some of these little leaves. I don't even know what these are, but they were growing along the roadside with some berries, and I just stopped and picked them. But that's what I mean. Even if you can't get to your forest, if you can't get to a really rural part of the country, if you're in the city and you're wanting to stay put, just a walk down the street, probably you'll find a hedge somewhere. Probably don't cut your neighbour's hedge, but you'll find a wild hedge with something on it that you'll be able to use for your wreath. I also picked up some leaves, so I went for this because I thought, well, that's giving me a good bounty of leaves and nice yellowy green colours, quite vibrant. And then I'm cheating slightly because I've had these drying out above my fireplace. I do this every autumn. It's a really simple way of just bringing nature indoors. I went to Brick Park to get these, and they were just lying abundantly all over the ground. So yeah, there's no excuse why you can't go to St. Colum's Park or Brick Park and just go leaf collecting in a day. My little boy and I brought these home. We hung them on a little garland above our fireplace, and they've been drying out nicely. Some people, again, really like to have a good flat straight leaf if you want that kind of very pretty uniform looking wreath. To do that, you would need to either just dry these by flattening them inside a book, the leaves of a book, or you can get a spray, actually an adhesive spray, I think in the likes of the range again, and you can just treat them with that and they'll dry flat. I like mine to have a little bit of texture and curl and shape to them, so I don't do that. I just let mine dry by hanging them on a garland, and I think it kind of just makes them look a little bit more authentic and less artificial. And I also picked up some oak leaves with little acorns attached to them. Now, there wasn't very many of these because the squirrels were out in forest yesterday, but I thought this was quite nice. Coming from Derry, isn't it nice to have something that represents our hometown? So there you go, some oak leaves and acorns. And the rest of the stuff I've picked this week just in the back roads here where I live. So it's absolutely abundantly available. We have got these, I think, are dried out like cow parsley. So these are just going to add a nice little pop of white, but also kind of a good bit of texture to what could be quite a flat wreath. And these were growing along the wayside, so I snapped those up. They're just kind of reminding me of the leftovers of the harvest time. And I find these growing, which I just thought were really cute. And again, if you like that more kind of simplistic boho-y look, something like this would be so pretty on your wreath, to just give it's quite modern looking. And these They're like little acorny things that I cut off a tree. You can tell I'm a total professional. Little acorny things. And lastly, these. Again, they were just growing in the hedgerow along the side there on the way home, and I thought, I like that rust kind of colour, and they're also going to add a bit of texture again to quite a flat wreath. I think I've used them here. This is them then when they're in a wreath, and I just think they're quite nice but interesting looking. So yeah, that's what we've got to make this wreath. And apart from that, the only equipment that you need as such is some scissors. And again, obviously, if you're doing this at home with your kids, probably best if you do the scissoring. And secateurs for the branches, just sometimes the scissors don't quite cut it. So these are a bit more heavy duty and can cut through a harder twig. And then I've got really inexpensive twine here that I have picked up. Again, you could get this in the likes of the Range or any wee shop, really, just like postal twine actually, so really handy. I use this for everything. And I've got some nice red twine. I've started making some Christmas bits and pieces, so this has come in handy for that. And there it is, the top of my little boho wreath. The only other thing, if you can put your hands on it, that can be quite handy, is this floristry wire. I think you can get it in the Range. I'm actually pretty sure that's where I got this. It's really inexpensive, but you get quite a lot of it, and it's just a bit sturdier than using string or twine, and you can manipulate it. And for instance, when you come to add the likes of this, you can twist it around this, or you could make a little grouping of things like this, twist those together and then attach that as one. So yeah, floristry wire if you can get your hands on it. If you can't, don't worry, twine will be sufficient. Well, I am going to start shaping the base of my wreath. Again, this is what I'm using, and I think I'm going to start with the vines this time. Again, I've never used them. I really hope they work out okay, but I'll speed myself up. This part's pretty tedious. It's not the most exciting part of the wreath making process, but it's really satisfying once you've done it and you see something that looks pretty boring and plain like this transformed into something that looks just wild and natural and interesting. So I'll get going with that. How I'm going to do it is I'm just going to start with one, shape it, and I'll probably twist these for the most part around my base, and then I will secure it with twine once it kind of gets a bit taut, so you can kind of keep twisting those for a while. But there you see I've just twisted one and it doesn't even really need any twine. If you can do it without using twine, it's better. Too much twine just makes the kind of wreath look a bit fussy. But I'll keep going with this, and you can get going at home as well. If you're using your twigs, which I will in a minute as well to add a bit of interest, you're going to do the same thing. Start with one piece and then just twist it around. And if you find that your twig is breaking, it's probably best to not twist and just to tie it on with a bit of twine. But you should be able to manipulate those so that they can stay in place, and I could just secure that now with a little bit of twine here, and that will keep that. So I'll not bore you, I'll get going with this. You can watch along and you can try it yourself. Okay, I've used 2 pieces of twine there, and the rest I've just woven them together. So I suppose it's a bit like kind of making a bit of a lattice with it. You're just going to wind them in and out of each other, and then the more that you add, the easier it is. You'll find little pockets to be able to tuck the end bits in. Again, don't worry if you've got these little bits on the end, because we haven't added the bulk of our wreath yet. Those will be covered up. But you'll see there where I did add twine, I've cut the edges of it quite short at the end, so yeah, you won't really be able to see that. There's not going to be any trailing bits of twine. So there's the very first basic outline of our wreath. I'm going to add some twigs just for a bit of interest, and then we'll start adding leaves. Okay, I've trimmed my edges a little bit. I've kept it pretty bulky though and pretty spindly. Once I add leaves, a lot of that's going to be covered, but I want a little bit of it to peek through in the end. So there we go, that's my basic kind of shape. You'll notice, well, I don't know if you can see, but I've tried to use branches that are kind of different colours. So I've got some pretty dark bits there and a few lighter ones going through as well. I really like to use kind of multi-dimensional colours. It's just won't be just as flat or boring. It adds a little bit of interest and yeah, celebrates just the variety of nature. So now onto the fun part. We're going to add some of the bulk to it now, to really just make this a bit more than, well, a scary circular bit of branch. So let's keep going. I'm going to start with my ferns or my bracken, whatever you want to call it, and I'm going to add it piece by piece. It's probably easier for you to just trim the edge of it a little bit so that you have a longer stem to work with, and it means that you can slot it into this lattice shape that you've already made and then secure it with twine. Just if you don't do that, you might find it be a bit floppy. That just adds a bit more support to it. I'm not sure I need it to be that big anyway, so I'll keep taking edges or the bottom kind of strips of branches off it or leaves off it, and hopefully that will then lend itself to a better shape of a wreath. If you were making a really massive wreath, I think a full fern would look gorgeous, but mine isn't going to be very big, so yeah, I'm just going to stick with the smaller bits. Okay, let's go. Okay, well now at this stage I hope what you find is that you've got quite a full looking, colourful, textured wreath. And I've just gone ahead and added some of the softer branches with little leaves around the top just to make it look a little bit fuller. But I quite like the fact that I've got this bulk at the bottom with the two tones of ferns coming through, and then the greenery around the edge and the sticks poking out. And I think you'll see now that you don't see a lot of the sticks actually whenever they're poking out. If you wanted to make it look a little bit cleaner, you could just chop these off on the edges. But again, I quite like a kind of wilder looking wreath. So now for the really fun part. We've got our base, we've got our basic structure, and now we're just going to decorate it really. There's so much to choose from. I don't want to add too much to mine. I don't want it to look too cluttered. I really like a very minimal, earthy looking kind of decorative thing for the house, but I don't know, we can have a play around and see what we think. These are beautiful and would just add a nice little pop of a light colour to it. One of the things that I like to do is to just make a sprig to add. And to do that, you'll just take a grouping of things. So you put these together, and maybe we could add some of these little mini acorns, and perhaps a leaf or two like this. I'll tie those together with some string and add them in, and before you know it, you're going to have just a really beautiful, full, colourful looking wreath. But I like that as opposed to things put the whole way around. It's kind of a bit more pleasing to the eye, I think. It's a pop of colour, it's a pop of interest rather than just being an assault. So have a play around and see what you think. I'll have a fiddle here and see what we come up with, and very soon we'll have a finished wreath. Well guys, I'm pretty happy with the shape and fullness of my autumn wreath now. I'll hold it up here so that you can see. I've got my ferns, green and dried. I've got my leafy bits to just surround the top there and just to keep it looking fuller. I made this little posy and popped it just in the middle at the bottom. I think it just looks a little bit more interesting than having something splattered around the whole outside, but it's totally up to you. That's the best thing about making wreaths from scratch, is that you get to choose, you get to decide what suits your home, what suits your mood. I finished it off with a little ode to Derry, the town I love so well, with my little acorns. There's one thing missing from it. I love a good bow, so I'm going to tie one just in the bottom, the very base of mine, and where my posy kind of meets the wreath. It's going to just help to cover up the bottom of my posy. I think it's just also going to add a little bit of detail, and who doesn't love a good bow? I always have scraps of burlap and just ribbon and bits and pieces lying about the house from Christmas, so I've just fashioned this out of some burlap that I've had lying around. And then what I've done is at the back I popped some floristry wire, and that's just going to help secure that on, so if I was, for instance, to put it on my front door, that'll keep the bow from falling off. So let's see how it looks. And there we have it, an autumnal wreath of glory. I hope that you guys have had as much fun making one of these as I have, and if you've made one, I'd love to see it. You can follow me on Instagram, Bracken and Birch. Again, I'm totally not a professional florist, but I love to do this. It's turned into a bit of a passion for me in the last year, and I'd love to see what you've created, especially if you've done it together as a family. Tag me, Bracken and Birch, let me see. I'd love to know and celebrate what you've made, and have a happy Halloween. Hang it up. Hang it up. Up, 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 up. And